Today at Wilwood Disc Brakes, we're going to show you how easy it can be to upgrade your Chevy Corvette to our big brake kit. Before we begin, it's very important to read through our datasheet instructions designed for your application to verify brake lines, wheel clearance, and look for any variations that may have taken place before or after the vehicle left the factory. With the car properly secured and the front wheels removed, we suggest taking some photos of the current setup for reference if needed. Here's the 1963 Chevy Corvette we're going to install the kit on. Disassemble the original equipment front brakes. Clean and degrease the spindles. Install bolts, washers, and nuts in the lower holes. Be sure to check that all bolts are either flush or protruding through the flange side of the clench nut after shemming. Install bolts in the upper hole using thick spacer and initially use 3 shems. The bracket must fit squarely against the mounting points on the spindle. Install the wheel studs into the hub. Apply red Loctite 271 and torque to instruction specifications. Pack the large inner bearing cone with the high temperature disc brake bearing grease and install into the back side of the hub. Install the grease seal by pressing into the back side of the hub, flush with the end of the hub. Pack the outer bearing. Temporarily install the rotor onto the spindle using the outer bearing, spindle washer, and spindle nut. Check that the caliper mounting bracket is aligned parallel to the rotor. If not, adjust by adding or subtracting shems on the upper bolt between the bracket and the spindle. Once alignment is correct, remove the hub rotor, remove the upper bolt, and apply red Loctite 271 to the threads and torque to instruction specifications. Remove one at a time the bolts that secure the 2 brackets to each other. Apply red Loctite 271 to the threads and torque to instruction specifications. Slide the rotor hub back onto the spindle and secure using the washer and spindle nut. Adjust the bearing to instruction specifications. Install new cotter pin. Press the dust cap into the hub. Do not hammer center of cap. Install using outer flange only. Mount the caliper onto the caliper mounting bracket using bolts and washers. Initially place 2 shims on each bolt between the caliper and the bracket. Temporarily tighten the mounting bolts and view the rotor through the top opening of the caliper. The rotor should be centered in the caliper. If not, adjust by adding or subtracting shims between the bracket and the caliper. Always use the same amount of shims on each of the 2 mounting bolts. The end of each bolt must be flush with or slightly protruding from the head of the clench nut. If necessary, place spare shims between the washer and the caliper mounting ear to achieve proper clench nut engagement. Once the caliper alignment and clench nut engagement are correct, remove the bolts one at a time, apply red Loctite 271 to the threads, and torque to instruction specifications. Next, using PTFE tape, install the 90-degree fitting into the caliper. Screw the Flexline into the 90-degree fitting on the caliper and tighten. Disconnect the hard line from the soft line. Remove the retaining clip. Remove the factory caliper and brake line. Slide the bulkhead fitting through the bracket and attach it to the factory hardline. Install the provided retaining clip. Connect the Flexline to the bulkhead fitting. Install the disc brake pads into the caliper with the friction material facing the rotor. Secure in place using cotter pin. Double check all your work for safety reasons, and when ready, perform a full system fill and bleed with new Wilwood brake fluid best suited for your application. Be sure to check again for sufficient wheel clearance and follow the directions for proper bedding of pads and pedal feel. Contact a professional if you encounter any difficulties or have any doubts or any questions.